The European Commission proposed Monday that fully vaccinated people should be exempt from testing or quarantine when travelling from one EU country to another. The EU executive branch made the recommendation for people who are fully vaccinated 14 days prior to travel. The Commission is also proposing that more reliable but more expensive PCR tests should be valid for 72 hours. And they say children who are not yet in line for vaccinations should not have to undergo quarantine if travelling with parents who are exempt. These latest proposals mirror those already agreed for travel to the EU from outside the bloc. And in other news, in Greece, authorities are employing futuristic security and surveillance systems to better stop illegal migrants from Turkey. We take a closer look at the high-tech upgrades to the EU's external border.
During the quiet months of the COVID-19 lockdown, Greek authorities installed digital equipment and physical barriers at the 120-mile border with Turkey. The high-tech measures are aimed at stopping people entering the EU illegally. Among them is a sound cannon mounted on an armoured truck. The acoustic weapon is as loud as a jet engine. Nearby observation towers are being fitted with long-range cameras, night vision and multiple sensors. The data they collect will be sent to control centres to flag suspicious movement using artificial intelligence. The head of the region's border guard authority explains.
We are
ready. We have a clear pre-border picture of our new systems, and we are ready to direct our forces accordingly in the field, opposite areas where a mass entry by migrants might be attempted. With new systems like the sound cannon and armoured vehicles, we can prevent this entry.
The EU has poured almost £3 billion into security tech research following the refugee crisis in 2015 and 2016. That's when more than 1 million people fled to Europe. In this Greek border village, the director of the local municipal authority is welcoming the measures.
We have a neighbour who is always aggressive. There is never a compromising stance from that side, only an aggressive stance. We are always on the defence, and we have to do something to defend ourselves.
A new 10-mile metal fence is under construction nearby. Human rights groups say the emerging technology will make it even harder for refugees to find safety. One member of European Parliament urges authorities to allow broad oversight of border surveillance tech.
What we are seeing at the borders and in treating foreign nationals generally is that it's often a testing field for technologies that are later then used on Europeans as well.
In Greece, the number of arrivals dropped from nearly 75,000 2 years ago to over 15,000 last year, a decrease of almost 80%.
Nestlé says it's working on updating its nutrition and health strategy. 60% of its food and drinks were described as unhealthy in an internal document. The description was an internal presentation circulated among top executives. The Financial Times broke the news. Now Nestlé says it's working on a company-wide project to make its products healthier. It says it reduced the amount of sugars and salt in its products by about 14 to 15% in the past 7 years, and it will continue to make improvements. And in other news, London scientists have found a type of coffee bean that was lost for over 60 years. An expert believes that this species has great potential for commercial farming.
Researchers at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew have rediscovered a long-lost coffee variety. The story started 20 years ago. Aaron Davis, head of coffee research at the Gardens, discovered a mysterious sample of Stenophila beans in the Kew archives. But its plants were no longer farmed and had not even been seen in the wild since 1954. So in 2018, Davis and a team of researchers headed to Sierra Leone in search of the long-lost species. They went to where it was last seen but found only one solitary plant, so they explored a similar forest elsewhere in the country.
We travelled towards the Iberian border
Again, another lengthy trek through the forest, and when we reached the correct elevation, the correct sort of environment, we did in fact find a healthy population of Stenophila coffee, which was absolutely fantastic.
There are 124 species of coffee, but the world relies on two varieties for 99% of its coffee, Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is known for its smooth, elegant taste and requires a cool tropical climate to grow. Robusta plants can withstand higher temperatures but are considered inferior in flavour. This rediscovered species could challenge them both as the future of coffee.
That Stenophila coffee can grow at an ambient mean annual temperature 6.2 to 6.8 degrees Celsius above Arabica. So compared to Arabica, it's extremely heat tolerant. And that is unique and exciting.
So how does it taste? In 2020, the team brought back a small quantity of beans and took them to high-end coffee company Union Coffee.
The really surprising thing that during the tasting was that this Stenophila actually tasted like an Arabica coffee from a well-developed origin that we would look for commercially. And that was really a revelation.
The expert tasting panel awarded the coffee a speciality score of 80.25. That means the new species has got a speciality status. Tors says, on a well-managed commercial farm, the quality of the beans is likely to rise even further.
An online second-hand shop called Sellpy is betting on the sustainable fashion trend. It's backed by fashion giant H&M and is planning to spread from its native Sweden to 20 other European countries. Sellpy says second-hand is one of the industry's fastest-growing market segments, but it's increasingly coming under scrutiny for fueling a throwaway culture. At the same time, consumers are becoming more conscious about the sustainability of their clothes. H&M was looking for additional sources of income when the business slowed down, so it bought its first stake in Sellpy in 2015. Since then, it's invested over £17 million in the company and owns about 70% of it. And in other news, in France, World Heritage Site the Palace of Versailles is gleaming again after a massive renovation. Complete with 450,000 new sheets of gold leaf gilding, and the sparkling roof of the Royal Chapel is now once again visible from miles away.
The Palace of Versailles in France is restored to its former glory after a 3-year wait. This is where Louis XIV established his court in the late 1600s. Now the gold on the roof of the 150-foot Royal Chapel is gleaming. That's after major structural work to repair gold plating.
There was over 800 tons of scaffolding on site. It took 6 months to build up the scaffolding.
Statues, ornaments, window frames and stained glass windows have also been refurbished after eroding for many years.
The group of sculptures on the eastern and western side of the roof ridge of the chapel's roof weigh about 4 tons each and had to be lifted, so we had to use special equipment, pulleys, enormous cranes and lifting devices in order to dismantle that.
Despite an existing drainage system, leaks severely damaged the roof over time and exposed it to bad weather. The lower part of the chapel's framework and the vertical gutters had also decayed. In order to protect the chapel from more weather damage, a giant tarpaulin was placed over the massive scaffolding during the renovation. About 150 highly skilled craftsmen, from master carpenters to sculptors and gilders, have worked tirelessly on the project since 2018. The work only began after 2 years of studying the building.
90% of the framework is the original one. It's important to tell it's the original framework. There's been, of course, some renovation phases done in the 1870s by Castel. It was an operation similar to ours, though ours was more important, I would say.
The most visually stunning part of the renovation is the shining golden roof of the Royal Chapel that can be seen from miles away. According to Massey, it's the first time it's been seen for more than 200 years.
A horse shelter in Russia named Freedom is giving retired horses a better place to spend their final years. NTD's Arian Pasta has the story.
The gate to this paddock is opened each morning, and the horses can freely enjoy the pastures practically all day. The shelter is called Freedom and aims to give horses a better quality of life than being confined to stables all day.
They have helped men in work in the household. Why should we give them away somewhere? Let them just walk and have a rest until the last graze.
One of the owners has been passionate about horses since childhood and opened her first horse stable in 2014. But it wasn't originally intended for elderly animals. Looking to improve the conditions for the horses, they moved the sanctuary to this current location in central Russia. The horse shelter began to attract other horse breeders who would bring their retired horses that could no longer continue their normal life.
We have horses with different problems. Some have problems with their legs, some have stomach problems, some with heart problems, and in some cases with the brain.
It's feeding time. As well as hay, horses are fed cereals.
Each horse receives its own food diet, depending on the horse and on its load.
In addition to their own 5 horses, they take care of 9 more horses for other people who pay 9,000 rubles per month, which is about $120. That covers the horse's nutrition.
In natural conditions, horses can live more than 40 years. In the stables, they barely live up to 20 years. So those owners who want to extend the life of their pets can arrange for them, so to say, a free life.
Some of the horses brought here were expected to live no longer than a year, but are still alive and kicking. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
After years of conservation efforts, the Iberian lynx population in Portugal and Spain has risen above 1,000. Spain's Environment Ministry is calling it a major leap towards conserving the endangered species.
The Iberian lynx is found mostly in Spain and Portugal. Its population decreased significantly in the 20th century. In 2002, there were only 94 wild Iberian lynx in Spain and none in Portugal. An initiative was launched to protect the species. According to a recent statement by Spain's Environment Ministry, there are now over 1,000 Iberian lynxes living in the wild, a record high since the monitoring of the species began.
I think that there is no other example all over the world of a species who was so critically endangered and in such a fast and strong recovery.
Facilities like this one breed the Iberian lynx. After being born and raised, the cats are released into the wild. Its prominent sideburns and ear tufts are what set the Iberian lynx apart. Despite the increase in their numbers, the lynx is still considered endangered. The Worldwide Fund for Nature says the population would need to rise to at least 3,000 to no longer be considered endangered.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees.